Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Hump Day. Welcome back to the Haus of Wrestling live podcast recording. It is just for ClubHaus members before it goes out there with ads for all of you out in podcast land and on YouTube. We have myself. I'm Nick Hausman, I believe, and I'm joined.
We'd hope so. It says under your nameplate, so I'd really hope that you are Nick Hausman.
I'm Nick Hausman, and I'm joined by Innes McVey. Innes, I hope you're Innes McVey.
I think I am. I mean, it's in my social media handle as well, so I'd really hope so. It'd be very confusing if I wasn't. But yes, I'm here. Hello.
Well, if you are a ClubHaus member and you're here, then you are allowed to participate in the chat room as the show is going along, and that includes our good friend Christopher Zanto saying,
"Hello, Christopher.
Good morning, ClubHaus members and staff from the west coast of this great nation." Dude, that's so. Thinks it's great, and it's just a good mood.
I have yet to go to the US. It is on my list, but I will get over there someday. But we're not there yet. Soon enough.
We're trying our best. I think great.
It would be.
Eye of the beholder, Chris. But no, yes. Thank you for your positivity, my friend. We are excited to have a big show here today. Before we get going, we want to send our best out to Virgil. Virgil has been like a supporter of mine and the site and the work I do for about a decade now. He's a eccentric, crazy gentleman. And unfortunately, he has been struggling with illness here for the past several years. Tatanka, fellow former WWE star, shared on social media that Virgil has suffered several strokes and he's not doing well. So we want to send our best out to Virgil. And I talked a little bit about it last night on the NXT post show, but we lost a friend here in the Chicagoland community. Our friend Justin Juice Wallace passed away in a horrible car wreck on Monday morning. And Juice was a good friend of mine and a good friend of the community. And I just wanted to send my love out to him as well. All right. This show today. Into the show, you're going to get my interview with WWE, longest reigning WWE Intercontinental Champion of all time, Gunther, in the house here today. And it's what a way to wrap up our first show of the week, you know?
It's good. It's great. Gunther's the best. And Gunther, I've spoken to Gunther a couple of times and he's always great. And he's willing to have fun in these interviews, I've always noticed. So he'll be a great little chat to see.
Fun is not the word I would use to describe Gunther.
Unique. Maybe that's slightly more accurate. Intimidating?
Hey, want to do the slip and slide, Gunther? I just wasn't like...
No, he's not that, but he's very much willing to go with the flow, whereas some people like to feel they aren't, but he very much is.
Want to do a keg stand, old Goot? You up for it? No?
I mean, if you've seen him back in his indie days where he had the weird pink hair, you never know. Maybe back then he was, but not nowadays.
That's right. I just don't know. I don't know him well enough. Maybe I can get him to do a keg stand. We'll see what kind of content we can generate as time goes on here at Haus of Wrestling. We got more here on the show that we're going to talk about. I got some exclusive news about the latest TNA office shakeup that's not even out to the public yet. We'll talk about it here. Then after the show, when this goes out, we'll let everybody know. But you're the first to hear about it here today if you're a ClubHaus member. Kazuchika Okada, he's reportedly heading to AEW. Shotzi got injured. We got some more NXT news coming out of last night's taping. The Rock is going to be embracing his heel persona. But first, as it has become accustomed to do here on the show, we have to get all the latest Vince McMahon news out of the way up top. Innes?
At least, listen, we're consistent. It's a segment now. One day we will not cover Vince, but today is not that day.
No, and it'll be some time, I think, before we stop covering Vince. Because, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. But again, the accusations that Janelle Grant makes about Vince are not just about Vince, right?
No,
and
I
think,
not.
And I'm starting to get a little concerned that everybody is just saying this is the Vince problem, right? And I think
he's kind of become a scapegoat in a way. To a degree.
Are you feeling that way too, where it's like all of this is falling on Vince and people are kind of losing sight of the bigger allegation and issue that Grant seems to be pointing towards here?
Yeah. I think part of it is obviously Vince has not been well liked in the eyes of fans, whether it be, stemming from things we've heard about him personally to what he's done in WWE in the last couple of years. But even then, the wider issue is systemic within WWE as a whole. It's not just, Vince is gone and the issue's solved. It's an issue that still needs answered and still needs resolved as to what they're going to do about it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about resolution more here in just a second because I have some real thoughts on that one. I fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole the other day looking into what are we actually doing here? What are we actually trying to solve? How do we actually fix the problem, right? We'll get to that, I promise. But first, the distancing of Vince continues. You can't even find Mr. McMahon, which was his profile page on the site anymore. You showed me that if you go to the exact URL, it redirects to the roster page. The only way to find this guy on the website is if you search Mr. McMahon and you find old articles or like the descriptions of photos he's been written into. That's all he's sent.
It's an interesting change because I believe either a day or two after the Vince allegations came out and he resigned, if you went to that page on WWE.com, it went to you are not authorized to access this content. So they clearly made the page private or something. And it's only in the last couple of days that it's now changed to a redirect, which is typically a sign of the page has been deleted. Because if you search like anyone's name that is not an official roster member, it just redirects to the site. You type in Kenny Omega, it redirects to the Superstar site. So they've erased the page, which is an interesting sign for how they see Vince in the future.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that. How far do they go with the distancing here, right? I mean, are we going to see him? How do you remove?
I don't think it's going to be like Benoit levels. I don't think you can. He's so integral to what they've done with WWE. I mean, I suppose you could, but
you can. Ennis,
you could absolutely. You could. I'm not really well, but you absolutely could. Yeah.
Because you'd really just, it's interesting because like it would really just be like pre-Attitude Era stuff, right? That like that.
That he's so true.
There'd be some Attitude Era, like the Attitude Era would be butchered, right? It would it would be totally butchered. Sure. I wonder if they would keep the Montreal Screwjob stuff intact just because Vince looks so bad in that. I almost wonder if they amplify how bad he was. I wonder if they just full on take Brett's side. I guess is what I'm saying.
Possibly. They could. I feel like for now they're probably going to wait until this progresses more. I don't think they want to make a change because inevitably that shows they're going to side one way or the other. So I feel like they're just going to stay course now. I mean, with the network and whatnot moving to Netflix next year, maybe we could see some changes through that. They could, remove him from certain things there and just say, oh, well, it was part of the move. You never know.
I could see him put a little warning on the screen or something, right? Like if you are the victim of sexual trauma, then watching this Steve Austin segment may trigger you.
Yeah. There's stuff they could certainly do, but I don't know if they want to do anything yet because it inherently puts them on like one side or the other, and I feel like they want to stay very neutral right now based on everything that's kind of been said from all the statements from the executives so far.
Well, neutral, but at a distance, right? There's definitely there's a 10-foot clown stick going on here for sure. Absolutely. We see Chris here back in our comments saying, I feel there are a lot of others involved and there's going to be an avalanche sooner than later of releases. I agree with you, Chris, as he also adds that Vince was the lead announcer for the Golden Era. How do you delete that? Well, for sure. Hey, we're going to see. But back to your other point about the avalanche, one person who does not seem to be wanting to be caught up in that avalanche is executive producer Bruce Prichard. On his Something to Wrestle With podcast, he said the following: I'm not involved, not being sued. I'm not accused of anything, and nor, it's a legal matter. And as I've said to you, sometimes it is as simple as for those who believe no explanations needed. For those that don't, no explanation will do. And that's kind of where we are. And let the rest of it sit in the hands of the fine legal system that we have here in the United States of America. I kind of hate it. I hated the last part. I hated the
no, there's definitely things you can do that are out with the lawsuit, I'm fairly sure.
Yeah, and look, I would have just kept it at, I am not involved. I am with the company. It is a legal matter. Yep. I cannot comment because the legal system in the United States obviously caters to the wealthy. It is I just didn't like that. I didn't like the last line, Ennis.
No. I feel I'm not surprised that he sort of took this stance. I mean, there was people like speculating that, the fact that he didn't make the statement right away. I think Conrad put out a statement saying he'd had surgery or something like that, which was true. Apparently he was in a cast in photos at the Royal Rumble. So that was true, but I'm not surprised that he's kind of distanced himself from this because I feel like inherently, if you say anything, you're gonna just you're gonna stoke the flames. So you kind of just need to sit.
Well, but first of all, there's 4 unnamed executives. We have no idea who they are. He is an executive, right? And so until they're all identified, I think there's because again, Grant says many people knew. You also have Ronda Rousey, a former a female that worked for the company, coming out in the immediate aftermath of these allegations, saying I'm going to paraphrase here, but Vince McMahon will be president in WWE as long as Bruce Prichard is there, because Bruce Prichard is Vince McMahon's avatar. Which, considering what is being alleged here, that's not something you want somebody saying about you.
True. I mean, there was reports as well that I think Vince was still putting in like creative suggestions during his retirement. I'm fairly sure that came out in the last week. So, I mean, it's inevitable that he's like, with Pritchard's involvement, there's inevitably the question of whether Vince is still there.
Bruce, Michael Hayes, Kevin Dunn. I mean, all these guys that were close to Vince, like friendly with Vince, right? Not like worked with him, but like we're friends with Vince. All of those people are about to be under an intense amount of scrutiny. And so, again, I think the first part of Bruce's statement, I'm not involved. I'm not being accused of anything here. Distancing himself, pointing those out, fine, right? I mean, what else are you going to do? But yeah, again, like, we'll let the courts decide this one. I don't know. don't There's
definitely questions that can be asked of him regarding the whole accusations and whatnot. Maybe not. Fine, you can step back. But in terms of specifics from the last things that he has specifically been named in, there is questions there.
Well, and it's weird too, because this is a civil, not a criminal matter yet, right?
No,
yet. Possibly could become a criminal matter here, you know, seeing how things progress with the SEC and the DOJ and what information is uncovered and all of that. But there is this weird thing in the United States. And again, I don't know how it works internationally, but when unless people see somebody go to jail, it doesn't seem to feel like they did anything wrong. And, you know, like when people go into a civil, like Donald Trump, for example, fellow WWE Hall of Famer, Donald Trump, goes into, it's found by a jury of his peers to have sexually assaulted a woman, right? Like was not allowed to say in court that he didn't rape a woman because the judge was like, you can't say that because you did, according to a jury of your peers, right? This man is possibly going to be running the country. And I don't mean to get political here, but it is wild to me that somebody that has been found guilty of their peers of sexual assault can be in this position, right? So if that guy can be president, right? Can Vince McMahon run a cartoon carnival? You know,
it's a fair question.
Again, I don't particularly like the legal thing because it is messy when it comes to money and power in the United States with these particular kinds of issues. So we'll see.
Sure.
That's my issue with it. You know.
Yeah, it's a messy situation, but like ultimately, I think I believe it's this Friday that they need to issue a response. I remember Brandon Thurston, I believe, said that. I believe it's this Friday that they need to issue a response to the Janelle Grant stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that.
We're going to sprinkle a little AEW stuff here before we get back to the WWE stuff, because I was going to put this in the AEW section, but it's about the Vince stuff, and we're just doing all the Vince stuff just gets its own section now.
Pile the Vince stuff together, and then we can just package it away. There we go.
So Tony Khan was chatting to Fanside, and it looks like during Radio Row Super Bowl weekend, he gets asked about it was very vague. It was like, there's bad allegations about women and power in pro wrestling, you know, in WWE. And then he gets asked, how are you working to protect women in the industry? So it was a little muddled question, but I think in the end was a good landing. So anyway, he first of all says he can't comment on the allegations going on in WWE. A lot of people jumped on that as opposed to the second half of his answer. First of all, how do you feel about him not commenting on the Vince stuff?
I'm not super surprised. I think my main thought is maybe because there is so many, you know, ex-WWE people, whether it's on the roster or behind the scenes involved in AEW, that him taking a side and perhaps if any of them become implicated down the line, it's a bad look. So I'm not super surprised in that regard.
Yeah, it is a weird. It's very heavy, right? Maybe saying can't comment is not, just saying I would prefer not to comment since it's a fluid situation where the stakes are so heavy, right? And we don't know what's going on. Maybe a little bit of clarity. Now, the other part of this answer was in regards to protecting women. He really just reiterates a lot of the stuff he said at AEW All In, right? He's like, people could talk to me. There's other people. There's channels available, but really no new ground available here. Well, I don't look. I have a lot of respect for my wrestling media peers. It's a hard time for us out there right now. Everybody is under an intense amount of scrutiny and seemingly taking shit at all sides. With that said, did Tony really address or lay out AEW protocols in this quote, which is what I saw a lot of people reporting, like, Tony Khan discusses AEW protocols for women's safety, which sounds like he has them. And it doesn't seem like there are. Now, what are we really talking about here? And this is not just for AEW. This is absolutely for WWE as well, because Hunter made the very, very vague comment about we're doing.
I was about to say, this comment reminded me a lot of Hunter's comments from that press conference.
It goes.
They were very similar.
And to be fair, up until everybody got cleared out at TNA, I had similar reservations, and we'll get to that later in the show. But look. There needs to be changes made. And so everybody keeps saying that. What protocols could be in place? What changes need to be made? And I think we've all just been spinning our wheels saying that without coming up with any kind of tangible offerings about what can be done. So what are we really talking about here? We're talking about whistleblowers. We're talking about protecting whistleblowers that see bad behavior within a company and protecting whistleblowers from retaliation. That is what we are talking about. We're talking about creating an environment where people are encouraged to talk to people within the company, independent human resources departments, or other entities. If you want to fall down this rabbit hole with me, we only have so much time, where they can go to and feel comfortable doing the right thing and reporting bad behavior, because that is in the best interest of the company to be creating a healthy work environment. You also have to create an environment through training and exercises with the people that handle whistleblowers to ensure that there is no retaliation against them, which I think is the number one biggest problem in pro wrestling when it comes to this particular issue. Because again, we talk about the speaking out movement and all this stuff, people speaking up. We need to call it what it is. These are whistleblowers, right? These are people that are actively trying to blow the whistle on very serious problems in the community, and they are scared to do so because of retaliation. They are scared they're going to lose their spot. They're scared that they're going to be stamped with some kind of scarlet letter. They're scared that they're not going to be able to find work elsewhere because they know that other companies, major companies, do not offer the kinds of protections that I'm laying out here right now. And they're worried it could happen somewhere else. And that bad actors with power and money in the community are just going to be able to make their lives miserable for blowing the whistle. So I really think that's what we're talking about here, Ennis, when we get to the bottom of it, is whistleblowers and how do we protect whistleblowers from retaliation? Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, what I really want to see is just slightly more of at least a laid out plan of what's happening here. In the wake of speaking out, we saw countless companies. Now, granted, these are indie promotions that don't have TV and don't have as much of a process as bigger businesses, but many of them laid out code of conduct of how even either the processes they had in place or their plans to implement said processes. And it was specifics. What we need is specifics of how this is being dealt with, rather than just like Paul said, everything, which what does that even mean?
What is that?
And Tony Khan just kind of giving a rough thing about how the locker room is the safest in the industry, which again is just saying it for the sake of saying it. We need like specifics of how it's being handled and what is happening behind the scenes to tackle this.
Well, and to be transparent with everybody, I've put in a handful of emails now. I don't want to be like, Andy Dufresne this thing, but I put in a handful of emails to WWE here, asking for examples of what changes are being made to protocols, and more specifically, what changes were made to the misconduct guidelines in the Performance Center 2022 that Shawn Michaels directly said happened, but gave no details of on the last NXT media call. I've yet to get any response from WWE in regard to what changes are being made within the company to protect women or men that want to blow the whistle. But nothing would make me happier in us than to be able to put that story out for everybody. Wouldn't that be great? You know?
That would be great. But I do wonder if it's maybe like a legal thing with a lawsuit, but I can't imagine that would have any sort of implications. That's the only thing I can think that could maybe be stopping them. But
no, there's
I don't think so.
Them. No, I mean, there's certain things in the suit you can't talk about, but to say we are rolling out new protocols or protections or lines of communication in the wake of these horrific allegations that we're taking very, very seriously, I don't think that violates anything to do with.
But does that inherently, by setting up those protocols, does that not inherently admit to guilt, considering they're a defendant in that case? Would they maybe want to wait until they've removed themselves from that and then implement it? That's my only other thought.
But why would and you know what? That's very fair. But why would Hunter then say what he did at the presser?
True. That's a very fair point.
Where he conceded that changes needed to be made and that they were going to be overhauling stuff. It sounded like, right?
Yeah, and Shawn Michaels said roughly the same thing in the NXT call. Yeah, so it's weird that they haven't gone into anything in that case.
Because if they're going to say we're waiting to see how this all plays out to see where our vulnerable spots are to make changes, okay, I guess
a little shady, but at least it's a specific answer.
Yeah, but you got to do something, right? Like you got to show. He didn't show up with a statement. We haven't got any kind of like real full-throated condemnation. And again, maybe they don't want to, get ahead of their skis and admit guilt to something they don't want to. But the more and more this thing goes on, it does feel like they know what's good. They know what's going on, right? They're just trying to pivot around it,
Yeah, and just kind of, I guess, like cover it over the WrestleMania stuff, I suppose. Like, it's a bit that if they want to cover it up with story stuff, this is the best time to do it. So,
well, and that's what they're doing here, right? They're sending The Rock out and Hunter out and all these people out, and they're not talking about the Vince stuff because they didn't take questions at the kickoff event.
No. Did Triple H and that ever get asked by any media at that kickoff event? Because I don't think Dwayne did. No, I haven't seen any interviews from anybody about that.
I haven't seen. So. I saw the Fightful and Denise ones with Cody.
It was Rollins.
Cody. No, it was Rollins, Becky, and then I think there was a Jade one. Very pared down from what was advertised.
Yeah, I know. It's very strange.
Very strange. Well, WrestleVotes is saying that The Rock is expected to embrace his heel persona on the road to WrestleMania XL. He's going to be more like the Hollywood The Rock persona, and there's going to be Cody Crybabies merchandise expectedly coming out. Now, here's the thing about The Rock, and I told you about this just before we went on the air. So, like, The Rock did this interview with E, and it had the modern, like, green lightning bolt WrestleMania backdrop behind him, which kind of looked like from the kickoff event, but I can't say for sure exactly where this interview took place. But he specifically said that one of the reasons that he's coming back here is can he possibly create the biggest WrestleMania event of all time, the biggest match of all time between myself and Roman Reigns? Can we do that? The answer appears to be no. No, you cannot. I mean, we talked about it last week, winging it, right? Like, it feels like they've just been winging it, right?
The only other thing I can think of is maybe they're doing a Rock Cena 2 and like reiterating that with like it's gonna happen next year, Netflix. I mean, I guess they could, but that's a long. That was bad the first time around. We don't need it again.
I mean, it's looking like they're gonna do a tag match: Rock Roman versus Seth Cody.
There was a trailer, I think, that came out that basically almost confirmed that. I mean, it was like the two teams facing off against each other. So like. I would be surprised if it wasn't at this point.
Is it night 1 or night 2?
I would guess night 1. It can't be night 2. Cody Roman has to be night 2. They haven't confirmed it, I should say. It's just a promo video where basically it's like Rock and Roman on one side, Cody and Seth on the other, and they just stare at each other. But
I could see The Rock saying, "I don't give a shit. I'm closing out this show."
I mean, he could. That would be very weird. I mean, I suppose they could if Cody like dethrones him on the first night and then that adds intrigue, but nah.
Rock and Roman coming in pissed off for night 2. Cody's got the title.
I suppose you could.
You put all the titles on the
Almost.
line, right?
Oh, true, you could. And then Roman wins again, and then we're stuck with Tribal Chief for another year. Yay!
And Rock has the workhorse championship.
He takes it to Hollywood with him. It shows up in his films. Oh, God.
Again, and look, Seth, by the way, told ESPN he's going to be back in action in 3 to 4 weeks before WrestleMania, which is good news for Seth and everybody that wants the best match possible from him. But yeah, the only way you do the tag match is if like multiple guys work both nights, and that's just it is just
Roman. I was expecting to do the multiple nights. I'm not super surprised at that, but it's strange. I feel like you have to do a tag match now because I don't think they're doing, especially with Rock and Roman being so friendly. You can't do the one on one night, one on the other, the two singles matches. So it has to be a tag at this point.
So tag one night and then both the title matches on another night.
I guess so. I mean, Seth. Yeah, I guess Seth could face against whoever thing is in the Elimination Chamber. So yeah, I guess you have to, and then have the women's matches on night one, both the women's world titles for like so they both have two world title matches on each show. It's strange,
dude. It is wild. Like I can usually make anything work. I'm very, 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 very easy to please storyline wise. I am very, very easy to please. This one, I mean, it's just gotten so messy. I
can't say I'm not enjoying it, mind you. I mean, I was watching the kickoff show last week, and I can't say I wasn't entertained, but it's weird, and it's it's interesting because I think wrestling in general is at its best when you don't know what's going to happen next. But the problem is, in that scenario, they're supposed to know what's happens next, and I don't feel like they do right now.
I just read you this quote that was released today from E, where this man is talking like he's facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, right?
Yeah.
Why, again, and then it brings up, why did Cody win at the Royal Rumble? And I guess tickets are up and viewership's up. To me, it just kind of feels like it takes away from the Cody Roman stuff a little bit, just because
a little bit.
It doesn't.
I feel like we're down that track now. I don't think they can get off it at this point, so they kind of just have to embrace it.
Well, and it's like everybody's having to supplicate themselves. I think I used that word right to Dwayne, where like Cody is getting slapped and he's given up his spot to Dwayne, and you see Roman walking behind Dwayne, right? He kind of looks like he got little brothered a little bit, and then everybody's just taking a shit on Seth. Like they're all like, "Who are you? Who are you?" So
poor
like,
Seth. His world heavyweight title has just looked like absolute dog shit for the last couple of months because just no one cares. He had to beg Cody to challenge him. That segment made him look like a fool.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Is like it's Rock, and then everybody else kind of is getting pulled. They're getting pulled down a little bit, and Cody Roman were so strong. Now they don't look like. And I don't know. They're fighting with The Rock for that. Like they both look bigger and smaller at the same time. It's very bizarre.
I don't know. Here's a question for you: if Cody had beat Roman last year, would you be more interested in the tag match this year? If that was the main event of night 2.
I mean, there'd be so much that would happen between last year and this year. It's tough to say, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a huge what if. I just think that it was so obvious from my end. Like if they wanted to do Rock and Roman, you just have Rock win the Rumble. I think people would have been okay with that. They would have understood it. And then Cody can either Daniel Bryan his way in at winning a shot in a triple threat or whatever, or can go off and face Seth and pick up a big victory there. But then they had Punk, and I don't know, man.
Yeah, there's so many different elements that I feel like it's kind of impacted their plans over the last couple of weeks.
All right, a couple quick things before we jump over to Gunther here. I'll try to plow through as much as we can and then probably save some of this for Friday. Wolf Dogs captured NXT tag titles last night. Big win for them. Unsurprising, wildly over. And as we've been saying for a while, I have not gotten the vibe that NXT ready to get rid of Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin yet. They feel like they could challenge like the Judgment Day in like a title for title match.
Yeah, I feel they're very, very strong. I feel like I don't really know if I want Braun Breaker in a tag team on main roster. I would like maybe him and Corbin to keep this up maybe until Stand and Deliver, have them lose it then to another big NXT tag team, then have Braun go away. But I don't know. I
It
feel
feels
he still has the strength of NXT. He's still strong enough there that he can last.
Braun and Baron to me feels like a multi-month program solely
Mm.
because they're going to hold the title. They're wildly over, right? They're going to
True.
start selling merchandise. I promise you,
Yeah.
Wolf Dog merchandise. People are behind them. People think they're cool. So they'll hold these titles for a while, I think, maybe through Stand and Deliver. But then they'll pull the trigger, they'll feud, you'll get your program. And maybe on the other side of that is when you see Braun really come to the main roster. I could be wrong. But this doesn't feel like I don't see these two. I see these two together in NXT for several months. That's what I see.
I mean, the only other thing you could do is maybe have Braun do both. I mean, it's not the first NXT guy to do both shows, but no, I mean, you could, I suppose, but Braun's fine on the shows. I mean, they've done the last thing of the last couple weeks of like the GMs teasing, trying to get Braun on the main roster. So there's hints of it there, but I'd be fine either way if Braun stayed in NXT. He's still got plenty to do.
A couple things happened during the post live taping. Week 2 TV taping, the off-air taping. Next week's show will be pre-taped. First of all, Shotzi got injured in a match against Lyra Valkyria. Fightful saying she was unable to put weight on it backstage. She was taken in for a medical examination. This is not a work. And spoiler, if you don't want spoilers, earmuffs, jump ahead just a little bit. Ava came out after the injury, announced that the match was now an open challenge. Lash Legend accepted. They had a brief match, which Valkyria won. And apparently all these women were praised for working on the fly to, make this segment, make this work after the injury.
I feel really bad for Lyra because this is the second big injury that's happened. Obviously not her fault, but like it's the second big like women's star who got injured in a match with her. Because obviously Cora Jade just like a couple of weeks ago had her ACL tear with a match with Lyra. So I wonder if it's affecting her, but I hope not because she's been great. But it's a shame with Shotzi.
She's gonna be friends with Ridge Holland here pretty soon. Everyone's gonna be staring at their hands all the time. What have we done? what monsters have we become?
It's a shame. It's interesting as well because obviously Shotzi was set for an Elimination Chamber qualifying match on SmackDown. So I wonder how they change that up.
We also had the OC coming back, or not coming back. They attacked Chase U on the show and the week 2 tapings. Don't know what the plan. It would seem like they're going to be working with Chase U here, and the timing of them debuting I find interesting because when I saw that the War Dogs had won the titles, and the family, very strong act, but they're not going to be able to work with the family forever. I was like, who's that tag team that's going to work with the War Dogs? OC. Those would be some hard hitting matches right there,
Yeah, and especially because the OC faction I think is dead completely now. I mean, AJ's not with me. I think they did some segments with AJ and Mia Yim, but it's not really like they've not really tied them together anymore. So I don't think that entire faction's gone. So
they were tagging with AJ on the Holiday Live event tour.
Yeah, but like it just seems they've just abandoned it ever since the Rumble. AJ's just on his own now, and he kind of pushed. If I remember right, in a backstage segment, he pushed away Meechin, and then they've kind of just never addressed it since. So maybe just one of these weird things. Plans change.
Yeah, maybe. Well, before we get to our last subject, Chris Rosantos here saying, "I hope we're gonna have time for Billy and the CW today." I'm sorry, Chris. It does not feel like that. One day we'll have time for it. Don't worry. But Fox 19 reporting Brian Pillman's grandson and Lexis King's nephew, Boom Swollen, I love this name, helped avert a mass school shooting in Cincinnati where he overheard the suspect's plan and reported it to the police. The Uvalde Children's Foundation giving him a Medal of Honor and all this type of stuff. Wonderful story. Good for, I mean, it saddens me. This is the kind of things we deal with here in the United States. But a good ending, which very, very rarely happens in these situations. I
was going to say it's a nice story in this regard, and also in the wrestling industry, which we certainly need right now. So very nice to see.
We're not going to have time for it, but you come back on Friday. We're going to talk about Okada. We're going to talk about the latest shakeup in the TNA office. This news is just going to be released publicly here in a little while, but it's over on the site right now. Spoiler alert: Ed Nordholm, who was former TNA or Impact president and had been working with Scott D'Amore, also no longer working with TNA. And we'll get into more of that on Friday, but it seems as if the decision was made around the same time that Scott. The decision was to move away from Scott. Scott and Ed were very, very, very close. And so just more movement in the office. But we'll talk more about it Friday. We got that. We got Butterbean, all of that. If you are listening to us in podcast form, if you're listening to us in ad-free version over on the ClubHaus, or you're listening to us with the ads over on general podcast platforms, we appreciate you either way. Ratings, reviews, comments, always appreciated on the Apple Podcast feed. We're going to read some of those here this Friday, so that's a great chance to be a part of the show. Some club housekeeping. My interviews with Otis and Chad Gable are now available in the ClubHaus exclusively for ClubHaus members. Actually, I believe Otis will be uploaded very momentarily. I believe Chad is there, but Otis will be there by the time, whatever, soon. Last night I stayed up late, did an NXT post show with my dog Willow. It was a blast. Chris, thanks for tuning in, and for everybody else.
I do have to ask, was Willow a better co-host than me? Where do I rate? No. Okay, good. I've still got the top spot. I'll take that.
Excellent. No, it was nice cuddling my co-host, but we don't have that relationship in us, you know.
Not yet. We'll see how it progresses. Once I get over to the US, we'll see.
Okay, I'm in. We also have some, like I said, the exclusive news about Ed that's on the site. We have the How podcast this Friday coming up for everybody, and then we'll do that then. And then, of course, this coming Monday after Raw, we'll do a post show. It'll be me, our gold member at Matthew England, who we absolutely love. We got several new bronze members that signed up this week. We appreciate all of you. And we got several other just general members that have signed in. I'm trying to be in the Discord all the time. Come acknowledge me. You know, that would be wonderful in the Discord.
You can make that a channel. Acknowledge Nick. We'll make that a specific channel.
I'm trying to get the Discord over. I'm trying to make it work. Innes, anything you want to plug, promote, put over here before we throw to Gunther?
Just as Nick said, get your reviews in. We'll read them on Friday, and have a nice rest of your week.
Yes, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day, wherever you are at. If you are without a Valentine, I hope it is a good one. And if you are with a Valentine, we hope it is also a good one. All right. With that, happy Valentine's Day for me and our guest for today, Gunther. Everybody, it's Nick Hausman from Haus of Wrestling. Welcome to WWE Royal Rumble weekend, and I am joined right now by the longest reigning WWE Intercontinental Champion of all time, Gunther. Gunther, thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, bright and early here. Well, obviously, I'll get to the big news right out of the gate. There was this article that was floated by Sports Illustrated a couple days ago, and they said that you were the odds-on favorite to win the Royal Rumble. Now, there's been some controversy about this reporting, but I just want to get your take. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's a very realistic scenario. I think that's where I belong, and I made my intentions clear as well on Raw, so we'll see what happens.
Well, you know, you are now finding yourself in the main event picture, sharing the ring with Seth Rollins. You've got WrestleMania in your sights now. How does it feel right now to be in this period where you feel like, I mean, look, to say that you've dominated the middle of the pack would be an understatement, right? I mean, you've certainly got your sights set higher. How do you feel right now being at this point in your career?
It feels very good, yeah. I don't really think about it too much, to be honest, because, yeah, I guess we all are, but in my case, you're always kind of like in the tunnel a little bit and focused on the next step. So sometimes you don't really step out and actually look at it from a bird's eye perspective. So I don't think, yeah, I'm not going to get lost in like feeling excited or overwhelmed about anything. I'm very focused, and that's what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah, you are ice water in your veins, my friend. Now, Imperium has found themselves at odds with the New Day and Jey Uso as of late. Now, a lot of people saying if Rollins isn't where you find yourself at Mania, maybe Jey Uso, who's aligned themselves with the New Day. Talk to me a little bit about, give me your thoughts on Jey Uso and what you think of him as competition.
Oh, yeah, I think that would be a very exciting match for the fans. If it happens at Mania, I don't know. Like, I know he was around a little bit. I don't know if it's a little bit too far-fetched to get into that. But further down the line, I think it would be a very exciting match for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, you know, you were such a notable name in the NXT system when you were coming up. And now there's rumors, or not rumors, I mean, Shawn Michaels has openly talked about it. NXT Europe, right? Like a successor to NXT UK. What do you think about the NXT Europe brand? Would you like to see yourself making occasional appearances there, be involved with it in any way?
It's hard to judge it because we don't know what it's going to look like. So it's hard to give an opinion. In general, I'm happy that they want to kickstart the project again. Because I always said that wrestling in Europe is fantastic. We have a very long history, we have a very long heritage, and I feel like when you look at the wrestling world right now, there are so many European guys that are on top in different places, and there's a good reason for that, because usually European wrestlers are very well trained, very well educated in our sport, and because of its long history, and yeah, it makes me happy they want to kickstart the project again.
Talking about UK talent, can I get your reaction to Tyler Bate finally getting called up? I mean, him and Pete Dunne, what a pair on SmackDown right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's good for him because it's a little bit similar than what Kaiser and I have, because yeah, I think they basically wrestled together the whole way coming up prior to WWE, and for them being as a tag team now, British Strong Style, being on SmackDown, I think that must be very rewarding for them, and I'm happy for them.
Absolutely. All right, last question here, Gunther, and thank you again for the time. There is a hot free agent out there right now that a lot of people would love to see you share the ring with, and that is Kazuchika Okada. Now, do you want to see Okada in the WWE mix? Is that a match that you would like to put on your plate?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Okada is fantastic. I always loved Japanese wrestling. Like when I grew up in professional wrestling, understanding everything, I always enjoyed Japanese wrestling the most. I was more of an All Japan guy than a New Japan guy, to be honest. But yeah, he's one of the best in the world, and if he joins WWE, he's very welcome too, and I think he finds great competition here.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gunther. I appreciate the time.